Okay, hello again. In this video I will set up the display for my Pocket console based on Raspberry Pi Zero and Adafruit Arcade Bonnet and QVGA TFT SPI display. To get the display working, I need to do several setup steps. First I need to enable the interfacing method SPI for Raspberry. So for that I will navigate to the configuration screen and Raspberry config. And inside Raspberry config I'm gonna select using the keyboard interfacing options and P4 SPI enable, yes, and in advanced options I'll check that the overscan is disabled. So this actually I disabled when I installed the Arcade Bonnet software in the earlier video. Okay, now the interfacing SPI has been enabled. I'll finish and I'll continue in the command prompt. So I'll press F4 to exit to the command prompt, and then I will edit file called etc modules, which lists kernel modules. And at the end of this file I will add two drivers for kernel modules actually. These two lines enable modules that allow the small QVGA display to work in the kernel. And next step, for that FPGA TFT device, I will also add a configuration file. In the modprobe directory. It's called fptftconf, and in that file I need to add a single line options for that module, and that lists the device, and then the options I give it the name. I call it FB_ILI 931. This is based. That name is based on the chip that is used in that display module. And then an important setting. I will need to define the GPIO pins that the driver is using. So there's a reset pin, which in my case is 25. Also DC pin, pin number 24. Excuse me. And LED pin, pin number 7. Then speed option. I'm gonna use value 99 and 6 zeros. So 99000000. It's a big number, but defines the speed. And BGR1, that's a needed one as well. Rotate parameter equals 90. That's the rotate parameter actually allows the display that's been designed to use as a portrait mode display. Then the driver will rotate the image 90 degrees, so it will function in the landscape mode that I have it in my console. Then a couple of additional parameters And the last one, if you add that, it will cause the display driver or the module to output frame rate information on the console, but actually I don't need it. I used it when I checked the how to get the frame rate up using the overclocking options, but right now I don't need it anymore, so I'll leave it out. And that's it. I'll write the file. And that sort of concludes the system files that I needed to update for the display drivers to get to work. And now I could actually reboot and check that I get the display to working. So let's reboot now using sudo reboot now command. So after the reboot, the new kernel modules are loaded and configured, so the display is, from the kernel point of view, ready to be used. However, it doesn't start displaying the stuff that I will see on the larger monitor just yet. I need additional setup steps for that. So the additional setup steps I will also do in command line. So as soon as that RetroPie has booted, I will exit the command line using F4 key. There we go. And now I can actually test the output to display using a utility called con to FB map, which causes the console output to be directed to one of these displays or frame buffer devices that the system is aware of. And the way I can redirect the console output to this mini display, small display on my console, is to give this command, con to FB map space 1 space 1. So the final number there, 1, actually that indicates a display. And once I press enter, lo and behold, my display there in the corner here lit up, and actually now the cursor is blinking over there. It's really small, so I probably cannot see it very well from the video, but you can see that the display changed, and that's a good indication that everything is working from the kernel module's point of view. So to go back, I give the same command, go to FB map, and give 1, 0 as arguments, and thus the console output was redirected back to the HDMI display. Now to get RetroPie emulated games output display to display on the to be seen on the small display, I need to actually add a utility that will continuously copy the screen contents from one frame buffer to another, and that utility is called FBCP, and I'm gonna install it from source. And this is how it's done. First, I need to make sure that I have the compiler tools needed. So I will install compile tool CMake. That shouldn't take too long. And actually I already had that, so I was ready to compile, no problem. Our next step is to get the source for the FBCP utility. I can get that from GitHub. github.com Tasanakorn. It's a user that has created this utility. Credits to him. FBCP RPI-FBCP. So Raspberry Pi frame buffer copy. Assume is the where the command name comes from. So let's clone that repository. And once we've cloned it, let's go to that directory. It's called rp-fbcp. It was created by that git command. And now I'll need to make a build directory first, like this. And then I go to that build directory, run cmake first with the parent directory as an argument, so it will create the make file for actually building the utility. So it's setting up or checking the system and creating the make file. Takes a little while, but now it's ready. So now we have build files, including make file, so we can run make. And now it's actually compiling the FBCP utility. It's a fairly simple C source file. Doesn't take long to compile. And the final step is to install that to a system directory where it can be launched and run. So I'll do it using sudo install command. Then the command and the system directory where it should go to. I will install it in user local bin. So once I give this command, it's been copied in the system directory, and I can actually try it briefly by giving the command and putting it in the background. Like this, and once I executed that, the display on my QVGA display on my console actually changed, and now it's actually constantly mirroring what's on the larger display here. So I'm gonna type echo hello, and then you probably see a little bit movement there as well when it mirrored the bigger display. Okay, but what I want to do is that I want to run this FBCP right from the boot, so then the whole system can be used without the big display, actually just using the small display on the console itself. So to do so, I will need to add the FBCP command to one of these system files that are executed at boot time. The one that I'm using is in etc. It's called rc.local. And there I can add this command. I'll put it after this a line which was actually added by the Arcade Bonnet setup script. So similarly, it added a command that it is running, or the rc local file gets that command running at boot time. So I will add FBCP command here, but I'm gonna use nice, which boosts up the FBCP priority a little bit, so it gives you more CPU time than some other programs, and this will help to keep up with the frame rate when it's constantly copying the display contents from one frame buffer another to another. Of course, I have to put the actual command in there. So nice -5 FBCP, and that's launched at boot time. So this means that after I've done this and I reboot the small display, the QVGA display on my console should start mirroring the big display contents right at boot time. So actually that would be a good idea now to test it again by rebooting and seeing that whether I can get the RetroPie user interface showing on my console screen. So let's do that now. Sudo reboot now. And now it's rebooting. The small display doesn't immediately show the same image, but that's because of it takes some time for the FBCP command to start. Once the boot sequence enters the rc.local file stage, then we should be seeing, and there we are actually. Now you can see there's a little bit, oh okay, there was the RetroPie splash screen appearing, and also the boot messages for a little while, and then the next thing should be EmulationStation like so. So now we are very close to been a very useful state in the setup of this console. It already boots to RetroPie, and I can use the keys to navigate in RetroPie. So all that's actually missing is actual games that could be launched from RetroPie, and that will be the topic of the next video: how to set up the game to be run in a Commodore 64 emulator in RetroPie in my Phat Pocket Arcade game console. So see you in the next video.